Parshas Matos. Your Parshas Matos steht, Vayovoyu bnei Gad ubnei Ruven vayoimru el Moshe v'goymer atoros v'divoin v'yazer v'nimro v'goymer ha'oretz asher hiko l'fnei adas Yisrael eretz miknahi v'la'avodecha mikneh, and therefore they wanted to have a chelik in Eva HaYarden. So the Gemara says in Brachas Dafches Amud Beis, Omar Rav Huna Bar Yehuda, Omar Rabbi Ami, La'olam Yashlim Odom Parshiyosav Im HaTzibur. It's what we call to be Maveseja. A person should complete his parshas with its tzibur. He shouldn't rely on the Kriyas HaTorah b'tzibur. He should be Mashlim Parshiyosav Im HaTzibur. Shnayim Mikra ve'echad targum ve'afilu atoros v'divoin. Even atoros v'divoin. Shekol ha'mashlim parshiyosav v'matzibur ma'arichin lo yomov u'shnoisav. So what's the ve'afilu atoros v'divoin, that even when it comes to these psukim, one should be mashlim parshiyosav v'matzibur, zok Rashi, ve'afilu atoros v'divoin she'ein boy targum. Doesn't have targum. How could one be mashlim parshiyosav imatzibur shnayim mikra ve'echad targum where there is no targum? So Tosafot says, Pirish Rashi, afil ha'toros v'divoin she'ein boy targum she'tzorech likroisoi shloisha pa'amim be'ivri. So Tosafot fataiches that what Rashi means to say is that afil ha'toros v'divoin she'ein boy targum, nevertheless, one is mechuyev to say the psukim 3 times. But bemis, we need to understand if the chiyuv of the takana is shnayim mikra ve'echad targum, how is that chiyuv niskayim by reading a pasuk 3 times? And why should we need to read the pasuk a 3rd time if there's no targum? So we can't do echad targum. But why say another time mikra? Tosafot says, "V'koshe." He asks on Rashi, "Amai nokat atoros v'divoin sheyesh lo mikol makom targum yerushalmi." It's true, there's no targum onkelos, but there's targum yerushalmi. Hoyeloi loimer Ruven v'Shimon oy psuka achrina she'ein boy targum klal. If the message is that one should say the 3 times mikra where there is no targum, so why are we saying Atoros v'divoin where there is a targum? It's kind of confusing. We might think that we should be saying the targum yerushalmi. We should rather say a pasuk where there's no targum at all. The Gemara should mention a pasuk where there's no targum at all. V'yashloim adam shemhachi nokat atoros v'divoin. Afal pi she'ein boy targum yodua elo targum yerushalmi v'tzarich likrois gimel pa'amim ha'ivri mikol makom yosetov likrois pam shlishis ha targum. So it's very, very complicated. What is Tosafot saying? Tosafot says, it's mashma that Tosafot also holds like Rashi, that when there's no targum at all, you should say 3 times the pasuk. But nevertheless, he's saying that Rav Ami is teaching us afil ha'toros v'divoin that doesn't have a targum yodua. You would think that over here you should say 3 times the psukim. No, you should say the targum. You should say Yosef Toiv, that the Pam Shlishis, you should say with the targum Yerushalmi. That's how the Marshal learns the Tosafos. That Tosafos agrees with Rashi that when there's no targum at all, you say 3 times the pasuk. But Reb Ami is telling us that afila ha'toros v'divoin that doesn't have a targum yodua, and you would think that since there's no targum onkelos, you shouldn't say targum, and you should say the pasuk 3 times. Kamash Mala, no, you should say the targum. Okay, so first of all, when Tosafot says that there is a targum yerushalmi, that's because it says in the targum yerushalmi michlalta umadveshta. In other words, atoros v'divoin is translated in the Yerushalmi as machlelta and madavshta. But you know that in our Chumashim, we have this in the onkelos. It would seem that the Ma'atikim carried it over from the Yerushalmi into the onkelos. because by us it's in the Onkelos. Not like Tosafot says that there's no Onkelos and there's a targum yerushalmi. It's interesting to note that in the targum Onkelos of the Tfus Sabiotina, Shin Yud Zayin, which is 1557, it doesn't appear in the targum Onkelos. Now, in our targum yerushalmi, it says machlelto medveshto, and that means atorois is a lotion of machlelto miloshin klil teferes beroishoy nosatoloi atorois, and diboin is miloshin eretz zovas cholov udvosh madveshto. Madveshto is a lotion of ziva, a lotion of flowing. So it's machlelto umadveshto is atorois v'divoin. Doim is the Aramaic for zov. But in the targum Onkelos that we have, it says machlelta umalbeshta, which would mean that divoin is malbeshta. Malbeshta means a lavush. Pashtus, it's a Torah Sofer. It should really not say malbeshta, it should say madveshta, which means a lotion of dvash, a lotion of do'iv, but not a lotion of malbeshta. In any case, I want you to know that on the Gemara in Brachas Lavches, on the side, on the Gillian, there's a Hagah that instead of Reb Ami saying Afila Atoros v'Divoin, it says Svarim Acherim Divoin v'Atoros. So what's that about? That's bemis because further on in Lamed Beis Lamed Dalid, it says Vayivnu B'nei God, when it actually happens that Vayivnu B'nei God as Divoin ves Atoros ves Aroyer. So in this pasuk, it actually says in the Targum Onkelos Ubnoi B'nei God Yos Divoin ves Atoros ves Aroyer. The Targum Onkelos does not have a Targum. He just repeats the words that it says in the pasuk. In the Targum Yerushalmi, it says Uvnoi B'nei God Yas Madveshto v'Yas Machlelto v'Yas Lechoyas. So according to this Hagah, you don't have to be Magia in the Chumash, in the Targum. You could leave the Targum Onkelos as is, and we're actually bringing the later pasuk. However, it's not clear why would we bring the later pasuk. It says because the first pasuk Taka had Targum Onkelos, but the second pasuk doesn't have Targum Onkelos, and that's why we're bringing the second pasuk, which is Divoin va'atoris and not Atoris v'Divoin. Okay, getting that out of the way. The Ikke Pshat and Tosafos, and the Marsha says Mefurish that that's the Pshat and Tosafos, that they also agree to Rashi that when there's no Targum at all, you need to say the Ivri Gimel Pa'amin. It's L'chara Tamua, because Bishleim, according to Rashi, that is what Reb Ami is saying. That when Reb Ami said Afil HaTorah V'Divan, he meant to say Afil HaTorah V'Divan where you can't say Targum, you should say Gimel Pa'amin Mikra. But according to Tosafos, that Reb Ami is telling me that Afil HaTorah V'Divan that doesn't have a Targum Onkelos, you should say the Targum Yerushalmi. So from where are we picking up the idea that when there's no Targum at all, you should say 3 times the pasuk? Why would Tosafos agree to this halacha? Bishleim, according to Rashi, that's what Reb Ami is telling us. But according to Tosafos, that Reb Ami is telling us to say a different Targum. So where in the world does it say that when there is no Targum at all, Rashi's right, and you need to say the Mikra Gimel Pa'amin? Now, if you look in the Rosh and Siman Ches, he says, Afil HaTorah V'Divan, Pirish Rashi, She'ein Boi Targum, V'koshe, Navamatulumim Afil HaRuven V'Shimon V'Kayoytze Ben, V'nireh Denokat HaTorah V'Divan, Afal Pi She'ein Tzorich Kol Kach B'Targum. Sounds like there is a Targum, but it's like unnecessary, it's just the name of a city. Aval Ruven V'Shimon V'Kayoytze Ben, is Taka Ein Tzorich Likrei Sholish Pa'amin. In other words, we're only saying by Atoros V'Divan where there is some kind of Targum. Ein Tzorich Kol Kach B'Targum. Tosafos says Ein Targum Yodua. He says Ein Tzorich Kol Kach B'Targum. But Reb Ami is telling me that Atoros V'Divan you should say Targum. But he says Masha'enken by Ruven V'Shimon Yitaka don't She'ein Tzorich Likrei Sholish Pa'amin. So this makes sense because if Reb Ami was telling me to say the Targum, even in Atoros V'Divan, it's because there's Al Kopanim some kind of a Targum. But in Ruven V'Shimon where there's no Targum, we can't be mamtzi a new halacha that you should say the mikra gimel pamim. From where should we get that? The Rosh concludes mikomokim nagu lahachmek appears Rashi, but according to his pshat, there's no such a thing. The Rabbeinu Yoina says, "Afila Torah v'divrei yesh mefarshim the nokat ze hapasuk mipnei she'ein loy targum v'kamar she'afilu hapsukim she'ein lohem targum tzarich likroi oisam sholosh pamim." That's Rashi's pshat. Zok the Helagi Rabbeinu Yoina v'ze einoi nireh sheharei motzinu harbe psukim acherim she'ein lohem targum. And why didn't he mention those psukim? Valkein nireh the mishum hachi nokat haikro lashmeinon the afila atoris v'divoin she'ein loy targum unkelis elo targum yerushalmi shezeu machlalta umalbeshto tzorich loymar oisoy targum sheyesh lo v'apsukim ha'acherim she'ein lohem loy targum unkelis v'loy targum yerushalmi efshe shedai b'sheyoymar oisam shtei pamim v'efshe shetzorich lasosim sholosh pamim. So here it's in ganzen mind-boggling. In other words, he says Pshat and Rebami is that you should say the Targum Yerushalmi. And how about psukim that don't have a Targum at all? So he says maybe you need to say the pasuk 3 times, and maybe it's enough to say 2 times. In other words, he doesn't know. He's not sure. He's mistapik. But l'chayra, I mean, why is he being mistapik? If we don't have a memra of Reb Ami that's saying that you should say the pasuk 3 times, so minolonu to be mamtzi azami and zach that you should say the pasuk 3 times. So we don't understand. I mean, according to Rashi, Reb Ami is saying that. We also need to understand why we taka saying that. How is that a kiyum of the takana of shtayim mikra targum? But for sure we don't understand. Those that learn that Rabami never said that, and he was saying that you should say the targum yerushalmi. So why are they thinking that nevertheless maybe you should say the pasuk 3 times when there's no targum at all, like Reuven v'Shimon? So you know, the iketakana of la'olam yashlim odom parshiyosav imat tzibur shnayim mikra ve'echad targum is that you shouldn't rely on the kriyas atzara b'tzibur, and every individual should be mashlim parshiyosav b'tzibur, as the Rambam says in Hilchos Tefillah, Perik Yud Gimel Halacha Chaf Hey, afal pisha odom shomei hakol haTorah kula b'chol Shabbos b'tzibur. Yeah, that's an optimistic, observation. Afal pisha odom shomei hakol haTorah kula b'chol Shabbos b'tzibur. Chayev odom likrois la'atzmoi seder shel oisa parsha. Okay, l'chayra, they should have been mitzaken that you should read the parsha once. In other words, don't rely on the Balkaira that reads the Torah and you listening. You should read it for yourself also. One time should be enough. So it's not clear why were they mitzaken shnayim mikra and echad targum. What's that? So you know there's a sefer Matnat Moshe from Moshe mi premisle, a Talmud of the Maharshal. It's a famous sefer for those that know. In Chelik Aleph, in Dinei Shabbos v'Hilchoseo, Siman Tov Samach Daled, he says, Shomati atam, lama tzarech lahashlim parshiyosav. Why? Keneged haTorah shenitna gimel pamim. That the Indian of the Shnai Mikra Targum is Keneged haTorah shenitna gimel pamim. Pam achas b'Sinai, Sheinis ba'oyel moed, Shlishis in Arvais Moyov Ba'er Heitev. That's what we're going to be doing now in Chumash Devar. Mishum Hachi, Anu Korim Kol Posik Beis Pa'amim, Ba'ashlishi Targum Keneged Ba'er Heitev. So if Atkan L'shoynis, if this is the Pshat, so then Be'emes the Chiyuv is a Chiyuv of 3 times. Keneged the 3 times that the Torah was given. Just since the 3rd time was Bayer Hativ, so we say that the 3rd time you should say it B'lashon Targum. Now the Eliyahu Rabbah in Reish Pei Beis Sifkat and Beis brings that the Shiori Knesset Agdoila is metame on the Matnat Moshe. He says according to him that it's connected the 3 times of Nesinas HaTorah, so the takana should have been to read 3 times Mikra. So the El Yerabba already says that it's obvious that the Shiur Knesset Gdela didn't see the Matnat Moshe inside. He only heard about it because the Matnat Moshe himself explains that the reason that the third time is targum is because the third time is connected Avrei Smoyav, where the Torah was given Ba'er Hativ B'Shivim Loshen. But that's true, yes. So, but Hamir, it's true that according to the Matnat Moshe, the Yisoid HaTakana is to say the Torah 3 times. It's just that the third time they also kicked in that you should say it in Lashon Targum in order to connect the Bayer Hativ of the third time. So, Lefiza, we could understand that when there's no Targum, you take a read the Mikra 3 times because the Yisoid HaTakana is Gimel Parmen. And that's why Tosafot holds and the Rabbeinu Yoina is Mesupik, that even though Rabbi Ami didn't even address it, but it's another pashut that when there's no Targum, the Ikka Takana is Gimel Parmen. So if there's Targum, so we ask for the third time, it should be in Lashon Targum. But if there's no Targum, you say the Mikra Gimel Parmen, because you say that Takana is the Gimel Parmen Shenitna Torah. Now the Ravon in Siman Peiches, and it's brought in the Hagoyis Maimuni Yois in Hilchis Tfilas Seif Perek Yud Gimel. He says Bezalosh LaOlam Yashlim Odam Parshi Yosef Matzibur. Okay, this is not a Ravon to be Seimachon. The Ravon says Nirali de Beyochid Ador Bekrach She'ein Lo Yasara Likris B'Torah. The Rabbi Bechlal is talking about somebody that doesn't go to shul, and he there is no shul. So we say that he should lay in Beyochid Shnayim Mikra Keneged Beis Shekorim Bebeis HaKnesses the Echot Targum Keneged HaMatargim. So how did he explains the Shnayim Mikra Echot Targum is because you know that the Shnayim Korim, because the Oila lanes, you know, today the Oila lanes Balachash and the Balkora lanes B'Koil Ram. So the Shnayim Korim, them is like the Rabbeinu Meshulam and Taisus and Bava Basra, that this is Me'ikit Takon of Kriyas HaTorah because the Torah was given al Yidei Sarsur, so the Torah has to be read by 2 people. So the Shnayim Korim, and in the olden days they had an Echad Metargim. So he says that the Shnayim Mikra Echad Targum is for somebody that doesn't go to shul, and he plays out the whole shul ceremony. Shnayim Mikra Echad Targum. Connected the 2 Korim and the 1 Metargim. As I state in the Ravon. He concludes that and he says that it must be the Imke Moshe Pirshu Rabbi Seinu, the Bekriyas HaParsha Baboiker Ari, that this guy is going to shul and he should just do it for himself in the morning. Kasher Onu Regilim, Leima Lo'ilam Yikrodem Parsha, Imat Tzibur Lomali, Void Shnayim Mikra V'Echad Targum Loma, Halo Yishmu Beis HaKnesses, V'yetzi Lechevose. V'afo became min Ogenu min Egomor V'yofer, the Dilma Lo Yechavan Liber Beis HaKnesses L'chol HaParsha, V'yetzi B'kriyose Shekorakva. Okay, so he's giving a different reason. Now, his reason, the Ravon happens to hold that Me'ikar Adin, this is a takana for somebody that's not going to shul. But Avada, we could say that this is, even though we hold that it's a takana even for somebody that hears Kriyas HaTorah, but we could say that the idea behind the Shnayim Mikra V'Echad Targum is connected the Shnei Korim, Yashlim Parshi Yosef Imat Tzibur, in the same fashion that the Tzibur does it. Yeah, there's Shnei Korim Ve'echad Metargum. And I say in the Lechem Chamudis on the Rosh, Ois Kuf Mem Aleph, he says that the time of he uses the time of the Ravon for us. So Lefi this understanding, the Echad Targum is not an add-on. The Echad Targum is that the Ikket Takana is Targum. In other words, it's not a Takana of 3 times Torah. And then we say that the third time should be Targum because it was Bayer Hatev the third time. According to this, it's Shnayim Koirim, the Echad Metargum. It's connected to the Meturgum of the Beis HaKnesses. So according to this, if there's no Targum, there's no Indian to say the pasuk a third time because the whole Mechayiv of Targum is Targum connected the Meturgum. So that explains why the Rosh holds that when there's no Targum, you don't do the pasuk more than twice. And that's the other tzad that Rabbeinu Yoina has, that you don't do the pasuk more than twice when there's no Targum. But we still need to understand Rashi, because Rashi learns that that's good for what Reb Ami is telling us. Afila Ataris v'divain, that since there's no targum, he goes over the Mikra Gimel Pamin. And Taisus says, why didn't he say Reuven v'Shimon or some other pasuk? So what can we say about Taisus's kasha? Why did Reb Ami take as a mashal Ataris v'divain, which happens to have some targum, and it's misleading? If he's trying to tell us that you should read the pasuk 3 times, he should have said Reuven v'Shimon. So I want to suggest as follows. How are you supposed to do the Shnai Mikra Targum? In what order? So the Shlo says that you should read the whole parsha twice, from the beginning to the end, one time, then again, and then the whole targum from the beginning to the end of the parsha. The Magen Avraham brings it in the beginning of Reish Pei Hey. So now it's like this. If you look in the beginning of Chumash Shemois, ve'ela Shemois b'nei Yisrael haboim Mitzrayim v'es Yaakov ishu beis Bo. The second pasuk says Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Pasuk Gimel says Yisachar, Zvulun, etc. Pasuk Dalet says Dom v'Naftali, etc. Pasuk Hey says Vayikol nefesh yotzei Yerech Yaakov shivim nefesh. So now I say like this: if you're reading the whole parsha from the beginning to the end, and then you're doing the targum from the beginning to the end, if you're going to skip these psukim of Ruvain, Shimon, so you started ve'ela Shemois b'nei Yisrael haboim Mitzrayim, and then you didn't say who they are, and you went on to after the names. So Avada, you can't do that, B'chlal. Avada, you can't do that. So if Reb Ami would have said Afila Reuven v'Shimon, we wouldn't have known from this that there's a chiyuv targum when there's no that there's a chiyuv gimel palm in mikra when there's no targum, because over here we have no choice. If I have a chiyuv of saying the targum. No, and what am I going to do? I'm going to skip the names now. I'm saying the targum from the beginning of the parsha to the end of the parsha, and I'm going to say v'ilein shmohas, whatever, and then I'm going to skip the names. It's not going to klebzich b'chlal, and therefore he has to say ataris v'divoin, because in ataris v'divoin, if you'll be metargim the first pasuk vayovoyu b'nei Gad b'nei Ruven el Moshe, and the last pasuk of haaretz ashehika Hashem lefnei adas b'nei Yisrael eretz miknehi v'lavadecha mikne, and he would skip the pasuk of ataris v'divoin v'yazeh whatever. So the targum will make sense, because they're saying that haaretz ashehika Hashem lefnei adas Yisrael eretz miknehi v'lavadecha mikne. They're saying vayovoyu b'nei Gad b'nei Ruven, and they're asking for the land. We don't have to spell out the names, so you would be able to read from the beginning to the end of the parsha the targum, and you would be able to skip these names. And therefore, the only way that he can teach us the chiddush, that even where the names are, where it's shaykh to skip the names, nevertheless you have to say gimel palm and mikra, is only over here in Ataris v'divain, because if he would tell it to us in Ruvain v'Shimon, we wouldn't know the chiddush, because in Ruvain v'Shimon there's no other choice, because if you omit the Ruvain v'Shimon, the pasuk wouldn't b'chlal klebzach. So the Tosafot's kasha is only a kasha if you go not like the shlo, and you say that you do each pasuk independently, then you would be able to skip these psukim in the targum. But if you're reading the pasuk if you're reading the parsha from the beginning to the end, you can't skip these psukim. Okay, so now the emissaries, I saw the Panim Yafas seems to be saying this, but then he says that it's a kol zeh doichik. I don't know why it's a doichik. I want to add that Rashi's bem is going l'shitosai, because in the Ikam Achloikis, if the Seder of Kriyas Shnai and Mikra Vechatargum is a Kriya from the beginning to the end of the Parsha, and another Kriya from the beginning to the end of the Parsha, and the Targum from the beginning to the end of the Parsha, or you do each pasuk independently, I would say that really depends on the Machlokes between the Ra'avon and the Matnat Moshe. If you say like the Ra'avon, that the Shnai and Mikra Vechatargum are connected the Kriya and the Beis HaKnesses, where you have two Korim and one Metargim, then the Metargim comes right after the pasuk. The Metargim wasn't Metargim after the whole Parsha. The Metargim was Metargim after every pasuk, like the Rambam says in Perek Yud Beis Milchus Fil Halacha Yud Mimois Ezra Noagu Sheyehei Sham Turgemon Metargem Lo'om Masha Koire B'Torah Kadesh Yavinu Inyan Dvarim VaKoire Pasuk Echad Bilvad V'Shoisek Atshi Yatargem Oisei HaTurgemon V'Choyze V'Koire Pasuk Sheni Ve'Eina Koire Rashoy Likreis LeTurgemon Yoisemi Pasuk Echad. So if the Echad Targum is keneged the turgumon of the Beis HaKnesses, so avadi, the way to do Shnayim Mikra V'Echad Targum is to say twice the pasuk and then to say the targum right then and there. Whereas the shlo that holds that you metargum in the end of the parsha, I would say that makes sense according to the Matnat Moshe, that the 3 times are keneged the 3 nesinas that the Torah was given in Sinai, in Oil Moyed, and in Arvos Moyov. So Bazoi, the emes, the entire Torah from A to Z was given in Sinai, Oil Moyed, and Arvos Moyov. In Arvos Moyov, it was given by Hatev, and that's why we do the targum. But Memela, you don't do pasuk, but you do the entire parsha according to the Matnat Moshe. Now we said that Rashi that holds that in a pasuk that has no targum, you repeat the pasuk itself 3 times be'ivri, al korchok, that he's not learning like the Ra'avon. Because according to the Ra'avon, there's no reason to say the pasuk a 3rd time. According to the Ra'avon, the whole 3rd reading is echot targum, and when there's no targum, you just don't say it. So Rashi obviously is following the interpretation of the Matnat Moshe that it's connected the 3 nesinas of the Torah, and Lefizeh Rashi holds that the targum is read in the end of the parsha, and Memela in the pasuk of Reuven v'Shimon, it's pashut that you have to go over the psukim, because if not, there would be a hefsek in the targum between the ve'ela shemois and the ve'ela shemois wouldn't attach to anything. If you read the psukim in between the targum, so then you don't have to read the targum. But if you're not reading the psukim in between the targum, because you're reading the targum after the whole parsha, you have to say Reuven v'Shimon. Memela, according to Rashi, is fa'emfet Tosafot kasha, that what the Tosafot is, he should have said Reuven v'Shimon, because from Reuven v'Shimon, you wouldn't know. Now, I'm just saying, if you're interested, you can see in the Rabbeinu Bachye, there's a fascinating shmuz over here about Atoris v'Divon, both al pi Pshat and al pi Kabbalah. I mean, like really amazing things. In any case, Rabbi Sai, I want to wish you a good Shabbos.